So it's 6:03, and I'd like to call the meeting of the Budget Committee to order. Welcome you all, and those who will be here. And Cynthia, you on Zoom, and we'll see you shortly.
Thanks.
You have an agenda, and I just want to quickly go through what we're going to try to cover. And hopefully in good order and timely. We talked about having meeting norms as a group. Draft is put together. We're going to discuss and modify and agree on those. Our consent agenda item is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, all of which have been edited a total of 6 times, and the edited final version is what is for approval. And then if Richard has anything from the select board that he'd like to share, we want to get into the administrative aspects of confirming the remaining department area meetings, and then the actual committee meeting schedule that we are going to embark upon as we continue our work. There will be a review of the water precinct meeting that was conducted by Karen Epstein and myself. And we're going to spend a little bit on the fund policy, a little time there, both to explain what it is, why it exists, and why it's important for a consideration of the total context of our budget and how we operate as a town. And Lynn's going to share a little bit about what's going on in Claremont. That is getting a lot of press and a lot of concern, and help us understand that and why we're in a better position and we hopefully won't be experiencing the same. There'll be time for public input that we certainly want to make sure we have. Last, I'm going to take a minute at the end of the meeting to review any action items that we have and do a quick meeting evaluation if time permits. Under the spirit of what do we do well, what can we do better, so that we can apply what we do well and apply what we can do better in subsequent meetings. So with that, I'd like to have us look at the second page of your handout, which is a draft of meeting norms for we hope to be work to be productive and positive discussion. I took the liberty of drafting this, and I'd like input from the committee to edit, change, delete, add, clarify, and ultimately ask for adoption. The purpose of doing this is so we have a context for how we function. And it's a good tool for us to use. And also, as we facilitate ourselves as a group trying to do good work, we use our norms as context for that when and if it is ever needed. So that's really the intention of the reason for having them. And if we take a quick read, and if there's a desire to expand, let's do so, or don't desire to edit, let's do that as well. And I'll keep the master copy and then make the final publishing of this after the meeting. So be on time, start on time, end on time. This is what that's about. Be prepared to the extent that there's preparation for a meeting. Stay on topic and agenda. And I think that's what I just wanted to expand thoughts around. When we talked last, we agreed that at any point in any meeting, something might come up, and it certainly may be important, but if it is not on our agenda, what we would do is I would record that in what I refer to as a parking lot so that it's not lost, and we keep track of it and determine how we want to come back in a subsequent meeting to address that particular issue. And that came up partly in relation to discussion around the issue of trust and a feeling like there might be, gee, I got you. If you're not here as a department head or another person involved in a particular issue, and it comes up for discussion, you have no basis, you have no opportunity to respond. And we want to avoid that. So if it's not on our agenda, I will table it into our parking lot so that that doesn't occur. And It hopefully will be helpful both to keep us focused on time and on task.
And your members could also introduce their motion to table the topic.
Or to table the topic, yes, possible, yes, good.
Is there a process for members to submit an item for the agenda prior to the meeting?
Yes, because at the end of each meeting, my intention is to have the committee establish the agenda for the next
Oh,
meeting.
right.
So that is like an activity at the conclusion that I will engage us in as well. One voice at a time. I think that speaks for itself. Give and receive feedback constructively. We all may require it and hopefully would welcome it if it is offered. View it as constructive and provide it as constructive. Practice active listening. What does that mean? For me, what that means is when another person is talking, you're actively listening to what they're saying, not what you're going to respond with or what your thoughts are. You're really being present to hear their thoughts and listen carefully for intent and certainly for content. As opposed to, while I'm talking, somebody else is trying to figure out how to shut me, have me not talk. But we want to make that as a practice that's personal, certainly, but one that is with intent, then we can be better listeners and then better conversation results. Any other thoughts on that particular item? Assume positive intent. Start from a position of, there's positive intent in what we're doing or what somebody's saying or what somebody's representing and bringing to this group. Challenge ideas, not a person. Challenging an idea is fine. Doing it professionally and constructively is fine, but not the person that's behind whatever the topic or item might be. Be respectful, maintain professional boundaries. Under maintaining professional boundaries, we had a little discussion about that last meeting. I raised a concern about social media and how it's used, and frankly, not used in a constructive and helpful way. As a professional in this committee, and as your chair, I'm not going out on social media talking about what we did in this meeting, who said what I felt about what they said, what I think they really meant, or any of that at all. And I think that's not helpful. But I can't control it. But I am saying my boundary as a professional is I'm not going to do that. Nor am I going to speak about any member of this committee outside of this committee. I will speak if I have an issue or concern or demands of an idea, I'll speak directly to that person. I think that's just being respectful and appropriate and would help us eliminate some of the, I think, ill-formed perceptions that occur because of things that are said outside of the meeting. So that's sort of my thought around what I mean by maintaining professional boundaries. Thoughts, comments, additions, deletions?
Just thinking, in terms of beyond time, just to go back to the top there, if people expect to be late or absent, should they write and inform you?
I
Or
would, and so far that happened already today.
Yeah,
Eventually, she's told me that, and yes, that's
See,
really helpful. So we know how we can conduct ourselves, particularly if we need a quorum
Mhm.
to
Yes.
function in doing that decision making.
Got it. Thank you.
I do want to go on record as apologizing for missing the last meeting. As I said, I had thrown out my back and took a Flexerol, not realizing it was going to knock me out cold for several hours. So it's hard for me, so I feel that I may not appropriately opine on this because I was not on time. I did not even come. But to me, I'm actually surprised that we need something like this because this is like business etiquette 101 to me. Like,
It is to me too.
okay, so I think this is all fantastic and appropriate.
With other thoughts, input?
I agree with that comment. This is very helpful and it's really good to enumerate it and get it laid out at the beginning of a new budget year.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and one thing I'd like to add is there will come times in a meeting where facilitation is needed. And rather than facilitating a person, I use the norms that we agree to work under as the basis for facilitating a discussion, not on facilitating the person or the group. And in that way, it takes out the personal nature of something or perceived personal nature. And I agree, these are sort of basic expectations that we all should be working under. But good to have them, and we can change these as we wish or feel, or add to them as we feel appropriate as we go forward in our work.
I can't imagine changing a single one.
No, okay, all right, moving on. I
Do
need a
you want
motion.
to adopt these formally?
Oh, that's probably a good idea. Well, I need a motion to adopt them.
I'll make a motion.
You're in a second. All in favor? Aye,
Uh,
opposed? Cynthia, we got an eye on you?
Yes, you did.
Okay. All right. Someone did accept. Consent agenda, the purpose of the consent agenda is that it will contain items that would have pre-work done prior to the meeting. So today, our consent agenda item includes the minutes from the prior meeting. So the intention is not to sit here to go through the minutes from the prior meeting, because we've done that prior to this meeting. We've had 6 inputs from various individuals. They've all been modified and included, and those have been distributed to everyone in the committee. So that there may be other work, for example, that is done on the outside of the meeting itself, that is an appropriate agenda item for the consent section. And it would be added accordingly. So the procedural way to deal with that, which is make a motion to adopt the consensus, have that motion seconded, and if there is then discussion that occurs. Otherwise, if there is none, we pass the consent agenda and move to the next item. It's trying to get us more efficient in time utilization. As best we can, because we've got a lot of stuff on our agenda and we really need to get to the meat of that as well. So I need a motion to accept the consent agenda in a second.
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda for the meeting of September 15th, 2025. As presented.
And second,
Second, Lou Boda, second.
any discussion on the minutes?
Mhm.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 I,
When you guys are doing it via Zoom, you better do the roll call.
Oh, we have.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, you very much for that guidance and facilities. Okay, one more time with a different way. So the motion was Karen Epstein. The second was Lou Boda. All in favor, Lou?
Lou Boda, yes.
Karen Epstein, yes.
Anderson, yes.
Bill, yes.
Cynthia?
Cynthia Russo's yes. I'm really sorry we have to do this because of me. Thank you.
Oh, that's all right, no worries. Charlie Kelsey, yes. So the motion passes and then it's accepted. Select board report, Richard, anything that you'd like to share with the committee?
Just very briefly, the Department of Public Works is looking to add some new bay doors down your lower building in order to improve access into the building for various vehicles and things like that, to get them in and out more easily and basically make it a more usable building. And aside from that, tomorrow we're having a meeting with some folks regarding, it's a pre-bid meeting for anyone who's interested in bidding on the new Department of Public Works building, as well as any other structures that might go on down there. To be very clear, one of the things I wasn't gonna bring it because it's a rather picky thing regarding the minutes, but to be very clear about it. We are looking at the Department of Public Works site as a potential location for other buildings, but it suggests in the minutes that that is a decided thing. It is not. We're just going to be looking to it. So tomorrow we're having a meeting with some folks who may be interested in bidding on the engineering.
Any questions? For Richard regarding that?
Yes, budget. So it's for the current sidewalk in South Pleasant Street. Seven had time kind of follows.
Yes, down at that site, in other words, the building that we had to effectively condemn, to replace that building and the possibility of adding, a police department building down there as well. So just leave that open as a possibility.
In addition to a DPW.
Yes. But we have no idea at the moment whether or not that's feasible.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
Very good.
Does that mean that the minutes need to be edited then?
No, they do not. If I thought they were, I would have brought it up.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, moving on to, thank you, Richard. Moving on to meeting dates and locations for department area discussions. You have in your packet a listing of those meetings. I've got some edits and changes, but what we want to do is confirm when they are scheduled, what the location is, if we know it, so that the entire committee knows that. And I'm sort of just also keeping us on task because we're getting very close to the start of the budget conversations. So there's a lot of work to prepare. These are important meetings to help us do that. 3 meetings that we know of. Water precinct we're here about. Police and dispatch happened yesterday. Public Works is scheduled for Friday, October 3rd at 9. A location to be determined. Town administration is scheduled for October 13th at 9 a.m. here in the town office. But I don't know status on fire, library, or recreation. Do any members know where we stand on those 3?
Putnam can.
Yeah,
provide the
I met
recreation.
with Cynthia and Chris
Well, it's happening.
last Monday. Yep, and I'm gonna get them the summary of our conversation for them to be able to share with the board soon.
Wonderful. So that's done, not to worry. You don't need to do anything additional. Library, we don't know about. Meg and or Lindsay is not here to represent that. Kim, do you have any thoughts on when fire is happening?
No, I'm still trying to coordinate with Lindsay and then we will.
Okay, yeah, okay, so that's still outstanding. When do you think you'll have that number?
That's a great question. Let's say next week.
Like what day by?
I need Lindsay to.
Right, so if you, I think what you could do is
give
just.
me a deadline.
Well, only because we want to publish it, so if there are other members of the committee who want to attend,
Okay, so
they
when,
know when and where.
okay, so you give me a date and we'll have it done by then.
Okay,
I know it's obnoxious, but
well,
she and I both have very challenging schedules.
okay, I'm just, yeah, and my only concern is we're getting tight and compressed. So if you can do that by, say, Wednesday, next 8th,
Done.
that would be good. Okay. And if you need help, let us know.
All right.
Let me
will
know.
do. Thank you.
Now, point of information, when we do publish the dates of these meetings, we have to be careful because you cannot have more than 5.
Yes, I thank you for bringing that up. In the event, unlikely albeit, that a meeting is to take place, a quorum happens to be there, which would be 5 members of the budget committee, then I would ask one member to leave and not be at the meeting, so we're not worried about it being a quorum, because these are not designed to be that. They're not designed to be public. There was discussion in the last meeting was raised by one of our citizens about could they attend? And I spoke offline with that individual and just said, this is really not, and these are working sessions. They're not public meetings. Now, can you say to somebody, you can't come? Well, in the spirit of transparency, I wouldn't do that, but in the spirit of keeping a climate for discussion and exchange of ideas and information, that's really what it's designed to do, and make it as efficient as possible versus open it up to the public. The actual reports that come out that are generated and edited by the department heads as well as in collaboration with the committee, those we discussed as being public documents. And because they're really information, and that is a good educational database repository of data that I think helps everybody have an appreciation for the scope of what each department does and how it aggregates as a whole. So that's how I hope we would, and I'd ask the committee at this point, that's how to deal with it. In the event you've got a quorum, somebody bow out. I don't think that's going to happen because everybody is very busy and distributing the responsibility the way we have. Planning, town planning, John Tilley and I have that responsibility. It's not on this list. I will add it. And we are tentatively looking at October 7th, 8th, or 9th. I've got to get John to weigh in on what his availability is, but I confirmed those dates and time availability with Adam Rickard today. And then on school, I didn't put it here, but the last time we talked was that Rich would help us with salient information relative to the school so that we are aware of any things that might be worthy of consideration as we're thinking about town budget. Is that fair, Rich?
Yes.
Okay. I'll have to get with Lindsay and I will do that in a minute regarding the library. All right, let's, if you're all okay with that, move on to our next item, which is the committee's meeting schedule. At the last meeting, and that's the next handout in your packet. At the last meeting, I agreed that I would assemble from input with Ashley and also what I gleaned from our conversation might be a potential schedule. So in front of you is that document. And a couple of things as we go through this that I'd like us to also talk through is we've sort of decided on the Wednesday as the day for the budget committee. And I also was hearing, well, maybe Wednesday isn't the only day, and maybe it might be better on another day to help facilitate attendance, particularly by members who are working and also traveling in their work. So I'd like to, as we think about this, think about that and be flexible to consider alternatives if that's appropriate. Additionally, the time frame prior, we used to be a 6:30 start. I'm suggesting it's a 6 o'clock start. We go for 2 hours maximum. That's it. We're done. Toast. We agree. We're gonna move on unless there be something urgent that would take us longer. And that we would draft minutes from the meetings within 2 days, and I emphasize draft, and we post those for public access as well. So the meetings will be at Whipple Hall. I am working with Ashley on an application that some departments are utilizing. And I won't go through the technical side of it because I won't articulate it correctly, but that allows the conversion of the video off the recording system at Whipple to be converted into meeting minutes. And then those meeting minutes become the document we would edit against, which is preferable on my part because I took the responsibility of doing the minutes for the last meeting, and that's a full-time job. And I think the other is that I've spoken to Ashley about, we're an independent entity, and I do not want to utilize the resources of the town to support an independent entity, meaning taking administrative time from her team to support this committee. And if we do, at a minimal basis at best. So I want us to be able to be self-sufficient in that way and also timely. So I'm kind of throwing out, let's get the minutes done within 2 days. And then get it out for editing and response and also post it publicly so that folks in the town have access to it, understanding it's a draft. The timeframe for the meetings with department leaders and the reports that are compiled and then shared with budget committee members, I'm saying is sort of between September 26th and October 13th. And after the 13th, there may be a lingering meeting, but we're going to be immediately starting to get into some of the departmental meetings. So I just wanted to remind us that the purpose of the reports is to gather data to inform the committee of the specific aspects of the department or function within the town, so that when we're in the discussion about a budget for that particular area, we've already done that work. We've already gotten and gleaned a lot of information, so we're not going to be redundant and ask the same questions. Secondly, those reports are designed for us so that we can look at them and say, do we want more information? If we do, or does it inspire an additional question that we might get to a department head well in advance of their budget presentation so that they could answer it and be prepared to do so if the committee felt that was an appropriate thing to do. So it's really serving those two primary purposes. And the third is, I see it as a data repository that we will just continue to improve and enrich over time. So this is our first year doing it. What the end document ultimately looks like, how it will be posted, how it will be managed as new information is shared. That's all to be determined. But that's the reason for doing those meetings and how data would be utilized. October 17th, I'm pretty sure is the full day budget review with the select board.
It's the day for the budget review. I'm really hoping it won't be a full day.
Okay,
Again, I just think, we're just beating certain topics to death.
Yeah.
Resuscitating them so we can beat them to death again.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And we'll see. I'm hoping that it won't be a full day.
okay. So in our, I'm sorry, go ahead. Susan.
Just regarding the editing of the minutes, could there be a period of time that the budget committee perhaps suggests edits and then that draft ultimately gets to the public? Because the person that's editing the minutes might have just a lot of comments, because sometimes there's little things. I don't know if the public and the budget committee needs to edit at the same time.
Well, that's a good point. I'm open to suggestions. The feedback I received is that the public residents want the minutes aren't out in a timely manner. So if we were to say maybe we would get them drafted within 2 days and the committee members present would respond with edits within 5 days, then we publish a final draft, which ultimately has to be approved at a subsequent meeting. That final draft could then be published for public access.
I think that's a good idea. I'm not the one responsible for the minutes.
Not yet.
Who is actually?
Does anybody have any thoughts that you share on that?
The videos will be up that night, so people need information right away, go to YouTube and get it, because like this meeting will be there by 11 o'clock tonight.
Okay. So that helps, and that's what's then maybe a schedule like that. So we agree with start and try to 2 day, get it drafted, feedback from the committee within 5, ultimate posting of draft after that is completed. But Will's point, video would be up the day after.
No, man, Will, for the, do you know, this is the only recording right now, the Zoom.
Yeah.
So I should send it to
I have
you.
access to all the Zoom.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Don't you worry, I'm good.
So you can take, well, and post this link to this,
All the Zoom meetings that get recorded on the town come to me.
Oh, beautiful.
and then you post them out on the website.
Yeah.
Then under other duties is
Oh,
Consider it a volunteer effort. It's not administration.
So, Jim.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
So, the recommendation was made by Lindsay last meeting to move the committee and association presentations to a first item to the committee budget discussions to put value and importance in the work as well as to the information they're sharing. And so that's why we put that on the 15th. October 29th, capital improvement program. Their public session for that actually is scheduled for the 14th of October. But I think that there's a lot of discussion within the committee right now as to how to fully represent the capital forecast differently because of these competing issues that exist, big numbers, timing, warrant articles, and this sort of thing. And we're not getting mired in all of that because that's administratively sort of directed by statute as well. But we want to make sure that we're representing the full picture over the time frame that sort of makes sense. So we're going to have a final review of that within another week or so. I believe it is certainly well before the public session, but I think the committee, while you'd have access to that and you can read it and look at the narrative, which will have a whole bunch of assumptions that you can refer to understand the basis for a particular projection. We may want to, I think that would probably go quickly on October 29th. The forecast models, Lynn and I haven't really talked about what does that look like and what's it take to do that.
Spreadsheet.
And yeah, and we may find, I think that's going to be helpful, not only to us, but to others. So that's the intent. We might, throughout the schedule, find things we want to shift around. So presently, police on the 5th of November, fire on the 19th, Department of Public Works on the 3rd of December, administration, planning, town clerk, tax collection, and we think library would be one meeting. We may find that different after Lindsay and they do their work. But in the past, library has gone fairly quickly, so that is maybe a doable agenda for the 10th of December. December 17th, go through revenues and capital reserves. Again, for new committee members in the past, we spent very little time on that aspect of the budget. And I think we agreed that it's a bigger than 20-minute discussion. And we didn't have much more on that. So January 17th, I'm calling a wiggle week. So wiggle weeks mean if we've got more we need to do, we could throw it in the wiggle week. If we have nothing, we can.
Or if we have snow issue.
There's no issue, yes. And then the January 21st meeting is to finalize the budget committee proposed budget. It's not to vote on the budget. It's a committee agreement on what its recommended budget is. And the distinction is the select board goes through a process to do budget review, budget modification, and they propose a budget. The budget committee does use that document, but is responsible to develop its budget. And so those two documents may differ. And in the event that they do, we get into a reconciliation discussion around the differences. But we're representing a budget committee budget for consideration. So the public meeting, where it is finalized, that process has been where we actually go through each line item of the operating budget that we're proposing. And as a committee, we vote on those line items, and it's then also in aggregate. So that's why those are separate meetings as opposed to just one, finalizing the budget. How do you feel about the schedule? You can certainly would love your reaction when, any other department head reactions.
Question on the 15th, there's a plethora of nonprofit organizations and other organizations like hospitals and stuff like that. Who is going to, it's not far away. Who tells them? You know, remember one time that we discussed a hospital and the hospital was missing.
Yeah, yeah,
They weren't informed, they chose not to be there, or couldn't do it.
but was it?
Ashley, yeah,
Ashley?
the town administrator, so Ashley
Okay.
should let them all know.
And she has seen the schedule, so she didn't push back to me in our review, which was via email, that wasn't viable.
Okay,
But I share the same concern because there are several and it's short time frame.
okay.
If we find that is a problem, then I think we can move some of them in and out with, to a later date.
Do we also have a patriotic, let's say, a fund line, it's a line item for patriotic purposes? I don't see it.
There is a line item there, but it's never really discussed. It's $300 and it goes to a VFW
Okay.
if they ask for it, and they do flags and stuff, so it's not really an item. We'll probably talk about it at the December 10th
Okay.
with all the other little items that hit the budget that don't really have a department.
And I don't want to see bypass, but I don't see emergency management.
Oh, ooh, good point.
I'm gonna cry.
Where do you want to be?
You throw me in that bright patch.
Do you want to do it, with police and dispatch?
Okay. I'm sure there would be, because some of the items that Karen and I were talking about may include emergency management when it comes to, for example, replacement of generators.
Good.
It's,
Um. Any other reactions to it and or input that you'd like to make?
So with this schedule, are you thinking like the 4th or the 11th, February 4th for the public hearing? Is that what we're aiming for? I know we don't usually land on it till
I
like
was-
November sometime. But if you guys finalize on the 28th. I'm thinking about the 11th.
Yeah, because we needed the budget, we need the budget finalized
Absolutely.
for the printing of the town report, which is the first week of February, right?
No. We need the budget finalized for the packet for the budget hearing. Which is the final step. Bring the public columns and ask questions. Or was that what you wanted for the 28th?
No.
No, because that's where you finalize your budget.
That's the finalizing. of the
Right,
budget.
and the reconciliation if needed, so then it would be. And I think, I don't know how many days you have to notice that public hearing, so I'm thinking, and again, we always set it. Kind of like November, December, we kind of decide depending on how we're going through, if we're on time, if we're doing what we need to do. But
So that would happen, but the final has to be by the 6th of February at the latest, is what I understood.
oh yeah,
Last year, the Department of Revenue published specific schedule for all your outputs. So it's probably going to be published this year too. You can go in and see the exact dates that the Department of Revenue requires you to.
it's floating somewhere.
All right, so since we
Okay.
don't know for right now, let me table that.
And we
Get
don't
back to-
have, we don't have to set that right now. We usually set it like in November. As we're going through and making sure we're on time, we pick, because it was always an argument with. John Wilson wanted to make sure it wasn't on Valentine's Day.
Right,
We had the public hearing last year on the 5th.
Okay.
And then we came back to it the subsequent week because we had some signings that we needed to finalize.
just-
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes, we had
Okay.
that adjustment because of my love it pneumonia.
Well,
Okay.
but we do have that kind of that.
Mhm,
wiggle room
Right in there.
too.
Yep. I'm just putting it out there that
Thank
the
you.
job doesn't end on January 28th.
No, it doesn't.
You guys had at least one more meeting to come back to.
Okay. I'll clarify that offline with Lynn and just to
Okay,
make sure we are clear as to what
yeah,
we are doing and make sure it's consistent with the Department of Revenue schedule and data they require. Okay. Any other thoughts, input, ideas, reactions? And this can be subject to change, but we do need to, if we do change, we've got to notify. We've got to publicize the change well in advance, and we need to change it, so. Okay,
I think it looks good.
all right, so this draft, I don't think we need to vote, we can just, I will assume it's gonna be accepted. I will revise this document, I will redistribute it to the committee and to Ashley, and then if there's any post-meeting thoughts or ideas or questions, lob them back to me. Okay, comfortable, ready to move on? Okay. All right. In your packet, you have a report summary from the water precinct report. Karen's going to lead this conversation. So this is the first of the meetings, well, close to being one of the first of the meetings, and how the report format kind of looks. And so we can talk. I don't know that there's an efficient way to do this in this particular meeting, because it would have been ideal that this would have been distributed to you prior to the meeting, had a chance to read it, assimilate it and understand it, but this meeting took place on Monday. We did a recap on Tuesday, written, we returned it back to the water precinct for editing. And so we have a deadline of 12 o'clock today for any adjustments, which they met, thankfully. So we were working on a short time frame, so we couldn't get it out to the committee, so you got an advance read, but ideally, I think that would be helpful, because there may be things that we have as questions, you have as questions prior to the, the document that we want to be talking about the questions versus all the content of the report. So Karen, with that great introduction, I'm going to leave it to you to
Thank
carry
you,
the
Charlie.
ball, and I'll help you where I can.
And folks, in the audience, there is a copy of the report on the table. So if you would like to, like copy to the data, please grab it. Oh, well, number one, Charlie and I, as Charlie said, met with water precinct, Ken Jakes at the water precinct. Monday, also attended by the office administrator, Maggie Lim. So first and foremost, we'd like to thank the water precinct staff for being so responsive to the questionnaire. Rob Thorpe and Maggie Wynn, Rob Thorpe, the superintendent, and Maggie Wynn, the office administrator, in completing the work here, and also the commissioners as well for their input in review, and doing so in such a timely fashion is greatly appreciated. So we started out discussing the department mission, services, and performance, as I said, with Ken Jakes at the lead there in conversation with me and Charlie, so no danger of a quorum. And the question is, please describe your department's core mission and the essential services you provide to the community. Which services are legally mandated versus driven by community priorities? The precinct was formed 100 years ago by an agreement of landowners to provide water for consumption and fire protection in a budding downtown area in New London. The precinct is regulated by the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, which has a stringent set of quality standard indicators and guidelines. These guidelines are also directed by the federal government Safe Water Drinking Act. The precinct tests and reports on water quality throughout the year. The precinct is managed by a commission composed of 3 elected positions on 3-year terms. The commissioner positions are compensated at $1,000 each per year. The mission of the precinct is to deliver the best quality drinking water and reliable service at the lowest possible price. So it was really helpful to get that history lesson in perspective. Question 2, how do you measure service demand, and what are the key trends you're observing, such as seasonal changes or newly grown service needs? Service demand.
Could I interrupt?
Yeah.
And I ask respectfully, being that we have the report
Okay.
and we could all read through it, fairly quickly. Do we think it's efficient to have you reading the whole report or?
And whatever anybody's pleasure is, because you didn't have it before, or thinking you go through it, do you think, you suggest just take a moment, read it and generate some discussion and questions?
Yeah, precisely. Either that or in the alternative, potentially having folks read it this week and then at the next meeting, then address questions about it.
Charlie and I discussed this coming into the meeting and certainly appreciate the perspective. And one of the reasons we wanted to get this out and kind of digest it today was so that people would see an example of a completed report. So whatever, happy to do whatever.
Yeah,
people would like.
I'm amenable to the suggestion, and I think that it would be a good use of time, but I also, we might be able to, Karen and I together, give us some quick highlights
Mhm.
and leave it there and then have you read it and then opine back with additional questions, clarification, which we can handle in a.
Now, for other ones, I think, for example, I'm still not done doing our police and of course I gotta send it to Karen. Would it be better then to send it to members? So the next meeting, we're ready to,
Yep.
It's already been digested.
Yes. That's ideal.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate having
Mhm.
this example for us to move forward,
Right.
but I think highlights sound great.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll take a stab at some highlights, Karen, if you want.
Sure, I'm happy to.
Yeah, whichever. I just on the first section, I think the history of the precinct is really important to try to dig into a little bit. One thing I learned from that I never knew before is how it was formed and the geographic configuration of the actual precinct itself. And there's a map that outlines that, but that was established 100 years ago. It was amended in 1950 something. And that's how the actual footprint for what the precinct is responsible for to provide a water supply was defined. In the service demand area, I think there's some really good data there. The biggest two customers, hospital, college. The run rates are pretty significant. 80,000 to 90,000, 80 million to 90 million gallons of water utilization on average in a year. 82,000 is the 24 number. This is pretty big. It's a single source system. So while there's going to be more continuing discussion on water, there's not another source. And for those of you configuration wise don't know, the Morgan Pond is a very large body of water that is dammed up in Guile Forest. And it runs over and there's a spillway that goes into Kidder Brook. Kidder Brook provides 50+% of the water that goes into Little Lake Sunapee. And Colby Sawyer Point, where there's an esker and there are current wells underneath Colby Point, is where thus water is drawn. It is filtered and then sent back up to a tank up in the woods a long way called the reservoir, and then it is pumped back into the system utilizing gravity and also pumps. So that's how it gets out to the distribution. And presently the capacity is 480 to 500,000 gallons. So that there's a lot of discussion going on in capacity, but this is sort of a baseline of what that is. The way they measure performance is really a customer centric model. It's based on how many complaints do they get, and the complaints they get primarily are on price. Yet the price of water in the town of London, and we can get this data, and it's kind of interesting because it's tracked by DES from statewide, is one of the lowest in the state, and it's one of the lowest rates in the country. But it's what people complain, customers complain about the most. So, the near-term challenge, I think everybody already knows, it's how to work in, increasing capacity out of the current single source system to accommodate the growth. And ultimately, working for longer term water exploration, which is a discussion that's underway. Staffing wise, it's a,
When they say alternative, does it mean alternative or an additional source?
additional.
Okay.
source. Yeah. I think there is a report coming out on October sixth. There's a meeting at the water precinct, I believe, and their report of the engineers that did a recent study on how capacity could potentially be increased is going to be discussed. So that might be of interest, but that's going to be data that will be helpful to further the discussions on water. Staffing is pretty straightforward. The other financial element of their operation that's probably just worth noting. You can see where their revenue generation comes from. It's basically water rates, it's hookup rates, and there are some fees related to hydrant fees, and all. But the bond that was issued for the Main Street water water main replacement on Main Street was issued, and they're in a still reconciling bills that need to be paid. At the end of the day, there will be some money left over, which will ultimately go into their unassigned fund, which would be used to support future capital initiatives. And they've got a lot of assets, but they're they're minimal compared to the Department of Public Works, but they maintain them. There's a schedule of maintenance on them. And I think the other thing that I left with was they're pretty tightly managed. There's not a lot of people, and they do a lot of work. And I was more impressed with the scope of what they do, how they manage it, and its effectiveness. One of the things that also is noteworthy is that the quality of water coming out of Kobe Point and through the precinct is some of the highest quality of water in the state and also in the country. And they were awarded some standards in a contest back in 2016, I think it was, and it was given the award for the best water in the country. So we're not only getting great water, we're getting it at a really low price. And so that begs, and they're certainly aware of as costs continue to creep on the water precinct. Certainly adjusting their revenue stream might be something they consider. So that's sort of my quick take, if that's good enough in minutes. You have anything else to add?
Maybe cabinet.
Okay.
Thank you, Ricky, for that suggestion.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Actually, the most important thing that I'm concerned about at the moment has to do with this issue of capacity.
Yeah.
And what was concerning to me was the bit that I've heard from the water precinct suggesting that we're looking literally at years to try and figure out what we can do in terms of capacity. And, there was a part of me that was trying to understand what would take years to figure out in terms of, trying, because as we think about development and things like that, and certain housing developments, if water is the key, if that's the linchpin.
Yeah.
How quickly can we figure this out and move on?
I got the sense that the October 6th meeting this week is going to address that. And that the issue of the time frame that you're articulating is not as great. Maybe the cost is not as great as what was publicly represented. I don't know that. I don't have all the data and facts for sure, but I don't think it's that long a period of time. And I think there's some promising information coming. I don't have the report, but that's what I gleaned from comments that were made. It certainly is something that we should get answered.
I think another important point is that the precinct would that there's a likelihood of something being done in conjunction with the precinct in the town in London. And the precinct has been that clear. And maybe we'll hear more. That's in the body of the document here.
Yeah.
To be determined, of course. But that's what to have on the radar.
And what is, it's spot on, it's the linchpin for so much that we're considering and or meeting. Other thoughts on this?
Yeah, the only thing I would add, you indicated that there's a tank, 1,000,000 gallon tank that gravity feeds to the town of London. There's also a subsequent tank buried below behind the Ivy Center,
Right,
which is great. Back in the day when we only had that basically an umbilical cord to the town of New London, if there was any sort of water main break, the entire town of New London was out of water. So now with this 500,000 gallon tank, it also has fire pumps because back in the day when we tagged a single hydrant,
yeah,
the water wouldn't run in the third floor of Colgate Hall.
Oh.
Or Burpee Hill
Hmm.
was another area that they had some water shortages. So they certainly, as things have changed,
Hmm.
that has been a huge benefit for us.
Thank you.
Can I ask, when did they add that tank?
My guess is 99 to 2000-ish timeframe.
Was it done when the Ivy Center was finished?
Before the Ivy
Before,
Center.
yeah.
Yeah, because before the water came from the pond. And so there's cannons in the pond, so our water looked somewhat like peat prior to the
Yeah.
awards being,
Given
or Jardia, one of the two.
So what is our role as the budget committee in ensuring that, I mean, it water's the most precious resource in humanity. But can we do, can we play go-between, or I don't know what, you know, I see we have water, the water precinct as a budgetary item, but what is our role?
Well, we don't have a role. The precinct is a separate entity. Governed,
Municipality, basically.
yes, and governed by a board of commissioners. With a set of governing guidelines. Our interest was to understand the scope of what they do because of the importance of water as a whole for the community and other activities that are within the purview of the budget committee, and certainly the select board and planning committees. So I don't think there is a role. That's my personal perspective. This is informational. For example, there is not a role for this budget committee in the school budget. That's a
Yeah.
separate entity, but it affects the tax rate. What the precinct does affects the tax rates and charge rates to the precinct users, of which there are 1,200. It's not the whole town. It's a subset, a fairly large percentage, but certainly not the whole town. The remainder of water from these other residences and locations is all private wells. So I don't see us having a direct role.
Just informational.
Informational, and I think that this information, I learned some things I didn't even know about precinct that were helpful to have as a context at least. Understand what they do, the scope of what they do, and sort of how they think about today and the future.
And it's still a very high interest item, because if we don't
Well-
if we don't have water, we can't have zoning,
No,
because
and-
nothing's gonna get built. We're, you know, our tax structure is going to rapidly diminish, because as we see here, you know, the economic vitality of the town is going to be
We
adversely affected.
did ask the question of, has the precinct pursued other alternative sources, additional sources than Colby Point? And the answer was yes, but the problem is the landowner has to grant an easement to the precinct to even consider it as a potential additional source. And then there's the expense associated with the exploration and then the creation of that source. And how that gets funded or might get funded is a big question mark. So there was consideration by one very large landowner. And the answer to the potential source was not acceptable to the landowner at all. So basically, it was a no-go. So whether within the precinct that ever exists as an alternative that then the town gets involved in, or the town does something separate from the precinct does, I think that's the future long-range talks. Important to have and at least important to be aware of. Okay, 7:05, moving on. If we can, and thank you all for your comments. Fund balance, purpose and policy. There are two documents in your packet. One is titled Taking the Mystery Out of Fund Balance. And the second is the balance policy for the town. And I'll read on Lynn to correct and add, and then get us into the discussion on Claremont. But the reason for sharing these two documents is to increase our awareness, certainly for some of our new members. I will tell you, in my third, fourth read of these documents, I still am learning something. And as I dig a little deeper into the numbers, I learn a little something. But the primary purpose of the fund, unreserved fund balance is working capital, ultimately, for the town. It's a measure of equity, which is calculated that I need to learn, but it's basically the formula of assets minus liabilities. You either have a surplus or a deficit. And there are ranges for what the desired surplus for the town are, and they are articulated in the policy the town adopted in 2023. 2020, whatever the date of the policy is, forgive me if I'm misstated it, it's 2021. And that is done as a percent range, and that percentage is a percentage of the general fund's operating expenses. So it's everything that runs through the books as outflow. For example, a big number that's an outflow through the budget is what we contribute to the school. So it's in the general fund. So that formula is calculated, and it's done also by the audit, verified by the auditors. And we just had our audit completed, results have been returned, and we'll know what that number is in the future shortly. What you have in the packet of the fund balance for the town is the 2023 balance, which was $1,868,000 in front page 2 of the packet of the town policy. $1,868,289. That represented 7.25% of the general fund operating expense measured at that point in time. So that balance is moving all the time. But when the audit measured it, which is a picture in a point in time, that was what it was in 2023, and that was at 7.25%. The range in the policy that was adopted by the town and is also consistent with the Department of Revenue range recommended very closely is 5 to 17%. And the 2023 number was 7.25%. The 2024 number was not far off numerically in terms of, it was about $1.9 million. It was 6.81%. So we're at the low end of the recommended range. And all that means is those are what the numbers are. Now, what's been done in the past with that fund balance, at the discretion of the select board, a portion of that has been used to apply to the particular budget year to reduce the tax obligation. So if your fund balance starts to get really low, the proportion available through the select board to allocate to the budget to reduce it is lower. So, and we're also right now, we're just at the low end of what that range is at this point, but we're within the range. So it's there for the purpose of what the town has historically done and the policy supports to help the tax burden. And it's also there for emergencies. If there's some unpredicted, unthought, emergency that happens and there's a need for cash, having a reserve available is smart. And I guess that's a segue to Claremont.
Sure is. Okay, so I don't.
And any question? Yeah.
Yeah, before we jump into Claremont, do you think that you would have met the recommendation from the state if the spending freeze hadn't gone into effect?
So you're talking this budget year.
This,
Which we have,
yes.
you don't have those numbers yet.
Okay.
For
For end of year.
end of year, right?
So this year, or last budget season, was even lower than
It's tighter,
what you're.
it's tighter.
Yeah, right.
And we have what's called the MS 535, which is the filing with the DRA of our final numbers for fiscal year 25. That I have that, but the select board has not seen it nor adopted it or approved it yet. So I think our next meeting will definitely be talking about it. The next select board meeting will probably be talking about it. So we'll have those numbers out for everybody to look at.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments or thoughts or questions on the fund balance that would be helpful for you to understand or know before we go to Claremont? And you may hear from other people about Claremont, and what's New London doing, so having this information would probably be also helpful to
Yeah.
the conversation, but go ahead.
So I don't know if you've seen the news, but Claremont School District has a $5 million deficit at the moment. And some people were pretty surprised by that. So I've gathered some information as to what has led to that. And it wasn't just one thing, kind of like the disaster of the Titanic. It was multiple things that caused this. If any of them hadn't happened, it might not be as bad. The first was poor financial management and oversight. They did not submit reimbursement claims for federal and state grants in a timely manner. Therefore, their federal and state grants were pulled. So they no longer, even though it was an approved grant, can't have any more money from it because you failed to meet your benchmarks. So I'm going to talk about each point, and I'm going to let you know what we're doing to make sure, or what we have in place that allows us to not be too concerned about that. On that point, department heads are responsible for their grants that they get. They have to follow up. They have to follow, all the deadlines with the town administrator also following that. So pushing if something's not met or if we need to. So we have not yet failed to hit a benchmark for our grants of filing anything like that. They had inaccurate projections and assumptions about their fund balance. They were expecting more surplus. They were expecting more leftover funds. They overstated their revenue for several years, and then the money didn't come in. So when you overstate your revenue, your taxes are determined by, here's our budget amount. We're going to subtract the revenue we expect. The rest needs to be in taxes. That's really a simplified version, but the rest needs to be in taxes. So they had, their $5 of budget. They said we're going to get $3 of revenue, so we only need to raise $2. They only got $1 revenue. They were short money. So that led to a cash flow problem. We do not overstate our revenues. We're very conservative on them. They also didn't record all their expenses. They were not paying their bills. They weren't recording them properly. My understanding is the person who was in there for the last few years didn't keep a general ledger. So there was really not a lot of record keeping going on. Our auditors would not allow that. They would come in and they would know something was wrong, if I didn't have the GL done. They had some liabilities that were not classed properly, because you can class a liability off the general ledger. It doesn't look like it hit your operating expense. You can do that with grants and things, but the auditors bring it back in and they make sure that everything is classed properly at the end of the fiscal year, so that you're not sitting there going, I have 5 million, but it hasn't hit operating, still good. They overspent, but hit it in places. Their special education costs went up, and that's something, honestly, that can happen with any school district. If you have several people move into the district, and they require special education, you are required to handle it. And you can't control who does and doesn't move into the district. I think the problem with that happened there is they had a shortfall on that and they didn't adjust for it the following year. So it continued to snowball. That's something that's out of our control. If, 100 special ed kids move into the district, you are gonna have a financial problem. But the next year you have to adjust for it and make good on it.
But would that win then be a good reason to have a higher percentage in your reserve, be given that unknown?
I would imagine, but I don't know school budgeting quite as well as town budgeting, so you may want some reserves.
I can just offer, we do have several trust funds for different things in the school budget. And one of them is specifically for unexpected special education
Well, good.
expenses.
I don't know if Claremont had that or not. So then they,
Just to be, again, as Lynn
Yeah.
has indicated, because we can find out tomorrow that someone has moved into the district, and you can have one child that might have $300,000 per year in expenses for special education. And it's the great wild card of the budget. We just don't know. And the flip side can happen, of course, is that a child moves out and that falls off of the budget. And the dilemma, the difficulty for the school districts is that we want to do the very best we can for all of our kids, including those who have special needs. And yet, if you get a reputation of doing that very well, you bring people in. And so it's a very foolish way to handle this issue.
But it's a financial reality.
it is. And then because,
The way that it is done, because of, I can tell you in 18 years now on the NBC for the school district, we always have new members who believe that that's the way to cut our budget, is to somehow figure out how to, and I have just personally, I have issues with anyone who wants to figure out how to do that to the children who are most challenged in our school district. But then just fundamentally beyond the warm and fuzzies of it is that it is just completely illegal and inappropriate.
Yeah.
thank you.
Can I add one other question?
Yeah,
Did we move to a quarterly tax billing cycle to help smooth our revenue inflow, or what was the is that totally unrelated?
well, like way before us. Way. And I would imagine it is. We don't ever need tax anticipation
Right.
loans because our revenue is very.
So, yeah, we
First
did that when we
year.
changed our fiscal year. So it used to be December 31st.
Gotcha.
So when we changed that, then in an effort, and there was a formula to balance it out, it was better from a finance perspective, but from a quarterly billing, they found that some in town felt that was an easier way to pay their taxes or whatnot.
Yeah.
Because then there was the conversation of the May town meeting, we went back. We used to have, I think it was, so.
I will say, I went last week to a full day presentation on municipal budgeting law, which was as exciting as it sounds. But that topic came up, and what was interesting was the woman who was presenting from municipal association said that, interestingly and sort of counterintuitively, it tends to cause more problems with municipalities when they move to quarterly billing.
Interesting.
It doesn't, it usually, the town actually does better in handling the finances when it is every 6 months. Which again is somewhat counterintuitive.
Yes.
I think the other thing about switching the date then too is that we're spending money July first that has been approved by the taxpayers as opposed to starting our fiscal year January first and then working for 3 months and then having it ratified on March 12th or whatever,
Yeah.
11th this year.
Another issue at Claremont was that because they thought they were in such good financial shape, they kept returning the surplus to buy down the tax rate. So again, you've got misstated revenue, let's buy it down even further, and they just honestly were not collecting enough taxes. We always make sure our MS 535 and our MS 434R, which is our revised revenue, are as accurate as we can be. The auditors actually file our MS 535. So they are the ones that do that with the DRA. So when we look at our tax rate, we're looking at very accurate numbers. So I don't think that we're gonna have that issue, that we're gonna overstate our unassigned fund balance. And we have yearly audits. They did not. They haven't had an audit since 2016. Like that's 9 years of, I don't know, Wild West doing what, it just. I can't imagine that a town would, or a school would allow that. We faithfully do our audit every year. If they give us recommendations on if we're not doing something correctly, it gets adjusted and handled so that it's not happening. And I mean, right now, honestly, the auditors are finding like little nitpicky things. Oh, this policy wasn't signed last year and it should have been. I mean, it's minor stuff like that. They don't come back with, you didn't do this correctly.
You overstated your revenue.
You've overstated your revenue or anything like that. So I think the audits are the biggest thing in preventing it from happening to the town, in my opinion. So that's the long and short of it.
I can tell you one very happy news that I got this week regarding our school budget was we just got handed an additional $900,000 bill from the folks to handle our healthcare insurance.
Now you're doing
I know, which compared to other towns is actually, or other districts is not so bad, including Claremont got handed a large bill, like the last thing that they need right about now.
Right.
Happily, we came in with a significantly higher surplus than we typically do this past year, which we have not yet returned to the towns. And we got permission to take the $900,000 that we need from the unexpended funds, and we'll still be returning to the towns a higher amount than we normally do.
Wow,
Nice.
that is nice news.
That's great.
So it was kind of like,
Yeah.
that worked out
Is
nicely.
that the school care issue?
Fascinating. So the sum from that is the town of London has really stringent controls
We do.
that assure that our fund balance is there, available. And as you hear from all of this, it's a moving number all the time. The other thing you hear is it's at the low end of the range that we have established, which potentially could be a challenge when we get to that point in the budget discussion about how much can be allocated to give some relief to the budget. So,
It's still prudent to leave money for a rainy day.
oh yeah, and that's a discussion I
Because
think
anything can happen.
that you're
Lots of
having all the
reasons.
time and
Yep.
is part of the budget discussion.
$900,000 bill.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Case in point.
So, great, thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. And I'm still following it because it fascinates me that it happens. So I'll bring any updates if I hear of anything significantly different.
So, all right, with that said, this is a time for public comment and input. We welcome from any member of our audience. Colin, please.
Colin B is the resident. The TV. So I know you've changed the process. I was wondering what you're thinking about doing for action items that came at the end of last year on a different process. One that comes to mind is the fire department staffing budget. There was
Yep.
a discussion around having a strategic view of what your staffing program is gonna look like, which is obviously meaningful for this coming fiscal year and the subsequent fiscal year. And perhaps any strategic planning that may come on. How are you gonna work some of those things into this new process?
Great question. I wasn't prepared to answer, so I guess I leave to Jay and say, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you to Karen for reaching out and I have vetted a draft through. Lastly, our town administrator, it should be, it's 99% complete, should be out probably tomorrow.
Oh.
And so this really has some facts, some historical data, the history of the department and so forth and so on. The New London Fire Department did apply for a grant that was due July 3rd. The terms of the grant changed, so we did go to the select board. Instead of 100% 3 years, there's a phased-in approach over 3 years, 25%, 25%, and then 60%. And in doing so, we received approval to submit the grant. The grant, if awarded, would still need to be accepted. And so there's some checks and balances there.
Yes.
So this would be for 2 full-time people. And the plan last year was to hire a person in a phased-in approach in an effort to reach the staffing levels. So this year's budget that was submitted does have a person in it. So that would be, right now, we've got positions enough for 2 people covering 24-hour shifts. So the individuals work a 96 in one pay period and then a 72 in the other. And so, but what it does is it covers 4 days in a row, and then what we'd be looking for would be 2 additional, and that would cover 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Because really the issue is the on-call system that has been so effective. So
Yeah.
we are working on it.
And
The
that was-
report should be up.
And that'll project out a forecast of that going through the next couple of years.
Couple years. Yep.
Okay. So that will be helpful in our modeling of what the fire department budget potentially looks like going forward. Does that help
Did I answer?
answer
Yes.
where
Yeah,
you were?
and I just think it's worthwhile for all of us to understand where the fire department personnel force levels are going.
Yeah.
Because obviously that's a meaningful operating impact on the budget, and understanding that might, it's good to handle our requests against all of that.
Okay. Thank you. Noted and appreciate the help with that. Thank you.
And so, and my guess would be that it would get distributed to our town administrator. And then budget committee, select board, all parties
Yeah, sure.
involved
Yeah.
will receive that, and I'm happy to. If
And-
anyone has any questions, I'm happy to sit down at any point and discuss it.
And that could be part of what that review discussion, that
Absolutely.
discussion is with you at that time as well. Great. Okay. If I can, I'd like to just get your input on agenda items for our next meeting. Still Chrissy. Sorry. So our next meeting right now, as schedule 6, is the 15th. And that is already populated with the items that we've got on the schedule, which are the committee and associations. And I'm hesitant, I don't know what additional meeting we should even be considering at this point, because we're gonna have some reports that are still outstanding that'll be completed. So I don't know that. I'm not sure I need help with from the committee to say, well, What do you think we should do?
In regards to,
Next meeting and the reports. I mean, what I think we got out of today's discussion on the water precinct report is we get that in advance.
Right.
We can on an offline basis get input. And those can be added or questions can be added that can be returned back to departments if that was warranted. And that would not require a meeting, but at this juncture, unless I hear something else from everybody, I think our next meeting will be the 15th. I mean, the 17th is the third, excuse me, the 17th is the select board meeting with department heads. That we're encouraging attendance, but not required necessarily from all budget committee members. But definitely a valuable use of time. Any other thoughts on meeting agenda items?
So are you saying that these reports, if they're available, will be distributed and you want us to suggest edits through like this email process, or do you want to have the edits or suggestions made at the next meeting?
I don't know that we can do it at the next meeting. Maybe we may be able to accomplish that. I'm just worried about the time. Here we are, October 1, October 13th, and then we've got a bunch of meetings set on the calendar. I don't know feasibly how we can do it any other way.
So a little bit of both.
A little bit of both, probably.
so what we're saying is when reports are coming out from the liaison for a department, that gets shared with a larger committee,
Yes,
and then committee members react to it and provide questions.
that then may be offered back to a department head as a additional request.
Okay, that's, I'm thinking, we have a lot.
So-
Next steps to do with, right up on Monday.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's very compressed. So I'm just thinking about where the big ones potentially could come are police, fire, public works. Those are probably the bigger ones, just because of the size of the departments and the scope. So between now and that report, we want to allow the department head sufficient time
Mhm,
prior to the budget meeting with the full committee
right,
to have any additional questions if they exist, so they're prepared. So I think we're in our first year. We're gonna have to see how this goes, and I really have shared, I think it's gonna be perfectly imperfect. And we'll make adjustments as we go forward. I asked for a review of the action items. I'm gonna forego that because I feel the energy level is low. In a meeting evaluation, I'm gonna forego, but I will send out to committee members participating, and if you don't mind, Will and Jay chiming in on the evaluation from your viewpoints. It's simple. Rate the meeting on a 0 to 10 scale, give it a numeric rating. 10, I'm so glad I came to this meeting. And 0 is, I wish I'd never been here to start with. But give it a numeric rating and just give some commentary to what we did well and what we could do better. I will compile that information, share it with all so that we can use it to inform how we go forward.
may I, suggest an item for the agenda of for the next upcoming meeting?
Sure, absolutely.
The end of year financials, I mean, we have the picture into that at that point.
Yeah, we will have that. Yeah, budget books are also gonna be ready by kind of one.
By the 17th.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, it's on the list.
I'm hoping to have them, well, my part to submit for Ashley and to start getting the books together is Sunday. That'll be my submission. And then
Yeah.
sure, go from there and assemble them and stuff, and then everybody will get their stuff prior to. The goal is to get it, let me make sure, because my days are really flowing together here. The goal, ultimate goal is to get it out to all and the select board with a week before their 17th meeting, so that they have time to look at it, absorb it, and get questions together for the department heads and other agencies that'll be there. So that's the goal.
And that's to do with the budget for FY 27.
Yes,
In regards to the end of year financials,
For
is that something?
fiscal year 25,
Yeah,
I'll be talking about those at the very next meeting.
Right.
So and it won't take long to just go through the highlights of that and where we landed.
if there's anything that can be shared ahead of the meeting, that'd be really helpful too, that we could take a look at it and if there's any questions.
Yeah,
we can
once
come
the
prepared.
select board has seen it and signed, they have to sign off. I have to get it back to the DRA for the final approval,
Mhm.
and then, yeah, it'll get posted to the website. And that'll be the appropriations portion.
Mhm.
And then we'll put the revenue portion.
Thank you.
Sure, but keep in mind, the revenue one is for. Appropriations is for the previous year. It works.
So the revenue is for the 2026, even though it's tied into the 2025.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
can give you the one that got filed for
No,
revenue for
I get it.
25. It's,
Interesting. Yeah.
I time travel all day long. I'm working on the future, I'm working on the past,
Okay. Super. Thank you all for attending. I need a motion to adjourn.
Can I ask, before we do, can I ask, who do we thank for the chocolate, apples and liver?
I provided those as sustenance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Very thoughtful.
Hope you enjoyed them as well.
Can I just add the meeting location for Public Works is actually this room.
Oh, it is, okay,
Yes,
yeah,
It was. No.
okay. I will add that to our schedule. Motion to adjourn.
I make the motion to adjourn. Karen Epstein.
Second. Richard Anderson, how do you vote, Lou?
No, not yet.